Got the best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Check your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another DFS Army Killshot MMA FTP Fuck the Public podcast, where we're breaking down UFC 252 from a daily fantasy perspective. My name is Kevin Allen, aka the Geek. Joining me, as always, I've got BigMarley, the sleeveless wonder, 17-inch guns himself. What's up, BigMarley?
Not too much. Got the sleeves on today. But hopefully I'll be ripping them off on Saturday after I hit this 200K. You know what I mean?
I'm sporting a no V-neck today, so I feel you. I'm wearing a Draftkings.
I got that shirt too. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Remember the fit?
Yeah,
baby. Now, joining us as well, the Killshot master himself. He can hit a target from over 2 miles out. The DFS Sniper. What's up, my man?
I mean, if we're gonna all throw up Draftkings gear, I'll throw up my humble brag, my World Championship NASCAR shirt that I'm rocking.
That appears to be a V-neck?
It's a polo, which is great because working from home, I wore this to work today. Sat here, Skype calls, and I had a couple people actually asked me. It's fun when you get to talk Draftkings at work, and I'm looking forward to talking Draftkings here because I love this card. This card is GPP money.
I love this card, and by the way, I talk Draftkings at work all day, so I feel you.
You know what? Pay me enough. Put me on full time. I'll do it too.
All right.
I'd love to do this shit full time.
It is nice. It's nice. All right. Great card. Pay-per-view. The last time, now, here a little story before we get into it. The last time DC and Stipe faced off, okay, I was hanging with BigMarley in person, watching the fights, okay? Now, that's a rare occasion, but we were hanging watching fights, right? Now,
good times. Good times.
It was good times. Now, the Draftkings Knockout Championship was on the line. I had 3 entries in that motherfucker. Okay? 3 entries in the final. Going into the last round, if DC wins the fight, I'm in second place, good for 50K. Whatever it was, I believe the number was something like splitting. It was second and third. There was one other person with the same lineup, actually, somebody I know, Statsational, John Alessio over at Beat the Bookie, Sports Bet Army. And we had the same lineup just by chance. And I was about to win 50K. We're in the 4th round. DC had won the first 3 rounds. It was done. And then the fucking body blows came. And I felt every one of them. I still feel them. I watched a replay of it for this card. And I felt that.
He tilted right on out of B-dubs. He was pissed.
I was like,
I would have won 50K if there was an eye poke no contest in the first round.
No, yeah, Marley was sitting in first.
That's why you hate B-dubs. Nothing to do with B-dubs. Get that memory.
That memory doesn't help. Okay, I will never go back to a fucking B-dubs. But the tilt, that's right, Marley. Marley barely got a goodbye from me. It was like, fuck this shit. I'm out of here. Take care, Marley. I'm out of here. That was it. That went down, man.
That was awesome.
Not that much fun. That was brutal. All right, we're gonna have a better experience for this card. Then I still took 4th place. There was money.
I was just about to say that we need to like get together and watch fights again, and we fucking can't do that. We can have like a stream party or something. Yeah, we can have like a live stream or something.
I can't wait to go back to Sun Tzu's house. The dude has the best lobster claws in town. Like, you can't get those anywhere else. But
I'm down to do a live stream sometime.
Yeah, you know, maybe
special live stream.
maybe
Although it
next
has to
pay-per-view.
be, I just tilt my face off if it goes wrong. So I don't want to be live streaming if that happens.
No, the views will go way up. We got to figure that out. Maybe for 253.
You should see when I watch part of the reason I don't live stream them is it's 6 fucking hours and I can't speak for that long. But
No, we would do just the main card.
It would have to be that. But you should see me watching the fights. I'm dodging and weaving like a fighter.
Yeah, me too sometimes.
I've seen it.
I'm like, head movement. You got to move your head. Like I know how to fucking fight. Head movement. I don't know
You
anything.
were up behind Sun Tzu's couch jumping around last time we rode.
Was I? Okay. Yeah. See, I can't help it. Even in public places amongst people. All right. Let's break down this card, baby. Very exciting. DraftKings, though, added some fucking turds. Why, DraftKings? Why? Not DraftKings. UFC. Why? Why did you do this to us?
It's actually great because people are going to play these fighters, and unless something funky happens, which I guess it could. Like
it could.
I mean,
Tony Kelly, he could win.
I'm fucking playing them.
I'm playing.
I'm glad they added it.
No, like
I'm not happy.
Maybe not that fight. I'm talking like the what's the one that
The
was,
Dawkins
I was
Porter
scratching my
fight.
head
Like
about.
I really want to fucking play that.
I was thinking more like yeah. See, those are the late scrubs. I was thinking like the scrub fights, like the 8% of people who play Lavinia Souza, who I just probably drinks to be into the optimal. But I mean, there's your rake right there. Like there are some fights to avoid here.
We're gonna get into that. The way you win a tournament is by strategically fading the right fight and not doing the wrong one. It always seems like that one fight though, the Maya fight from last week, where
now I got to play fucking Souza just because I said that.
Yeah, like it's that one that you weren't expecting that gets you the million. Vince knows what's up. Kevin Geek is back. 2-hour pod. You know what's coming. All right, let's get into it. First fight of the night. Tony Kelly, Kai Kamaka III. 2 unknown quantities. Second editions. Now, here's what's interesting, Marley. When the numbers came out on this fight, it was like much wider than this. Kai opened up at -250. A little bit of money looks like came in on Tony Kelly. I talked about it last night in Slack. I was like, when I looked at the records, I kind of thought Kelly would be the favorite before having watched any tape. Now, Kyle, you've watched some tape of these guys. You've been a fan of Tony Kelly since back in his MTV reality show days. So give us a breakdown of both sides of this fight. The go-to decision prop. Let's see here. -175. Okay. +135 doesn't go. I mean, there's a chance for a finish here somewhere. Let's see. Actually, let's see here. Kamaka, Kelly inside the distance +370. Kamaka +305. Okay. All right. There you have it. Both similar inside the distance props around +3, mid threes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird how late they added it. I wonder how long these guys have known about it, honestly. And that makes me want to play it that much more. If these guys aren't in fight shape, maybe they don't have 15 minutes in them, and we see a finish here either way. But Kamaka did fight 2 weeks ago. He looked pretty good. That was really the only fight I looked into, actually. I didn't look into any others. I don't know if I couldn't find him or if I just ran out of time, but that was all I saw. He looked really good. He looked strong. He looked fast. Looks like he's going to be the better striker, the better boxer, the more powerful striker. But Kelly's just a solid all-around MMA fighter. Although this is from years ago, I didn't even see his last fight yet where he won in the first round with like 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. But I watched his fights previously, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. And he was good. I figured he was going to make the UFC back then, and he just never got the call. Now, and who knows what kind of shape he's in. His last fight was over a year ago. Before that, it was 4 years ago. And this fight getting called up on like 2-3 days notice. I mean, if he's getting the call to the UFC, he's not turning it down. And he's probably getting a shot for another fight. So it makes me think this is Kamaka's fight to win. I think he'll probably be the one in more shape, stronger guy, be able to have a chance at the knockout or just pick him apart, land some body shots, wear him out, finish him late. But I think Tony's probably going to have to go for the kill. Maybe he could do that with a knockout. I think I would more likely be like a head kick. I think he should probably look for takedowns and try and get a submission early in the fight. But I don't really know what the hell's going to happen. So I like both sides of the fight. I am picking Kamaka, but if I was making one lineup, I think it would be Tony that made that lineup. I think he's the one he's going to go for broke, I would imagine. I just have no idea what he's going to look like. I kind of want to see weigh-ins before I really make that decision as well. But right now I'm leaning as Tony Kelly is my preferred play, even though I'm picking Kamaka to win. I just don't know that other than a knockout, that Kamaka is going to score more than 10x of an 8.9K salary. So not a guy I'm going to have a lot of, but I definitely want some Kamaka exposure. I'd probably be, 20%, give or take 5%.
There it is. Sniper, do you have a strong take on this one? Have you even had a chance to really look at it closely?
I've looked at it a little bit. I pretty much agree with Marley, except I'm going to be underexposed to it. I guess Kelly's worth a couple shares just because, Dogwin is going to be on the optimal and he could go for broke. I agree with him. I think Kamaka's better. I think this could turn into almost like a sparring match. I'm worried for a low scoring type of sparring match. That's kind of how I'm seeing it play out in my head, unless Kelly just goes for broke because he knows what's his face? Like James did a few weeks ago against Camacho. Like, I have 5 minutes of gas. Let's throw. I don't, he's an older guy. He's fought once in the last 5 years. It just doesn't do it for me. I'll have a couple shares, and Kamaka, I'm going to have just a touch there too, because my strategy for this card, there are 7 fights, and I'll at the end, we'll kind of rehab. There are specifically 7 fights I want a fuck ton of exposure to. And this just ain't one of them. So there are 4 fights I'm pretty much going to not cross off, but be way underweight to. And 2 I probably will cross off. This is one of the ones I'm going to be underweight to, so I can fit an extra exposure to the fights I really like.
All right. I'm going to speak to your point and more from a DraftKings point of view real quick on this fight. When we look at the favorite, Kai Kamaka, he's 8,900, right? Same price as Herbie Burns. More expensive than Dvalishvili, than Brown, and right there in the range with all these fucking studs, right? He's one of the most expensive fighters on the card. So, therefore, he not only needs to, I don't care if he wins the fight. This guy's been a decision machine throughout his career. Can he get a knockout in the first round? Yes. If you're making 150 lines, should you get some level of exposure to that just in case? That's the $1 million play? Of course. But it's not very likely. And he'll be low owned for that reason. So there's some GPP sort of tournament like contrarianism to it. Beyond that, though, I don't give a fuck if this guy wins. He wins by decision most of the time. And even if he does win, and even if he gets a finish, he still has to outscore some really big hitters in the same salary range to be in the perfect lineup. So essentially, Kai Kamaka has a mountain to climb to get to the nuts lineup. Now, my boy Tony Kelly, MTV special. He's at 7,300. He doesn't need, first of all, he's been a finisher. He hasn't fought forever. We don't know what we're going to get. He has 3 minutes of film. Like, what I watched him get a guillotine. There's no film on this guy, and it was from a year ago, and before that, it was 4 years before. We don't know what we're going to see, but assuming, he might come out and get a knockout. Crazy shit happens. Whatever does happen, though, if this guy gets the win and the odds makers are telling us he's plus 160, which means if you're so confident in Kai Kamaka that you think he's got it better than a minus 185, 68% probability or something of winning this fight, okay. But if not, 62% probability, whatever. What's minus 185? About 60. I'm going to say 60%. Tony Kelly's got plus 160 odds. That 40.
It's close to 65%.
65, so 35. This guy's got a 35% chance to win. If he wins the fight, he's in the nuts lineup. Now, if we're better than the probabilities of the odds makers, great. That's wonderful. Bet it. But if not, I'm going to get me some exposure to Kelly here. I don't know if I'm going to go the full 35% exposure on it, but I'm going to get exposure. What's that?
35's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot for a fucking long shot.
I wouldn't do that.
But I'm saying that's what the odds are telling us. Like, this guy Kelly probably finisher, but he doesn't only need to finish. He probably needs to finish violently.
I mean, and also, how many people are not even going to know that this fight is on the card? Like, they've already made their lineups and they're done unless something happens, you know?
This isn't like that special fight edition that makes you want to change all your lineups either. It's not that. It looks like, I made my lineup. I'm happy with it. I'm not going to change it. You know, I think there'll be ownership. I'll be excited to see what the ownership projections look like. But I'm just saying, the underdog at plus 160, if he wins, he's got a much higher shot of the nuts than this particular favorite. All right, let's move on to another fight with two guys that have no business in the UFC. I wish I could be in like a job where by default, because they had no one else around, all of a sudden I'm like in the major leagues. Like, this is like you were playing softball in your league and you're good, you know, like your league with your work. And then like the Mets call and they're like, dude, we don't have a second baseman. Can you come out and play? And you're like, what? And you're like, yeah, dude, all right, I'll come fucking play some baseball.
Just get fat and start the box. The UFC will sign you.
How does that happen? All of a sudden you're in the... Who are these guys? Chris Dawkins, Parker Porter, very low-level heavyweights. So Sniper, you know, very close odds. Parker Porter is actually priced significantly higher, I would say, than what his odds value suggests here. I mean, he comes at 8,500 on DraftKings with Dawkins at 77 as the underdog, but this is basically a pick'em fight, minus 120 to plus 100. The fight doesn't go to decision at minus 325. Man, that's very, very high inside. This is prop. You have to get exposure to this. Who do you like and why?
See, I like both sides of this for what you just said. People very well could shy away from this fight just because who are these guys? Those low-level heavyweights. Go look at, when you start looking into it though, Parker Porter has once in his 15-fight career saw the judges' scorecards. Once. And that was in 2008, his second pro fight. Like, the dude fights, and then it could be second and third round finishes, but there are finishes. You go over to Chris Dawkins, same thing. The last time he saw the decision once in his 11-fight career, and that was in 2016.
Can we qualify that both of these guys are terrible and have faced terrible opponents?
So yes, I would say that Porter's probably faced a little bit better competition. What's his face? Dawkins has fought one legit guy in terms of heavyweights. Like Onyewu was in the UFC, got knocked out by him. Parker Porter, you know, again, CES guy, both just all regional scrubs. Absolutely right. So
I'm really not seeing anybody good. Yeah.
I start looking at just who's better. Just you try to look at some of their wins. Porter's a little bit more complete in terms of grappling and submissions. They're both bigger, older heavyweights. I have a slight lean with the odds towards Porter. That being said, in terms of DraftKings, I like the odds value is away from the guy I'm picking, not by a ton, but listen, this is a fight I'm loading up on. It's just neither one has faced good guys. I think Dawkins has faced. Yeah, this is one of the 7. I have a hard time seeing this fight not scoring unless they're both tentative because UFC debut. But I think these two guys are going to stand and trade. I think at some point Porter's going to go for a takedown. Honestly, I think if it hits the mat, I think he's going to submit Dawkins. So give me Porter. Dawkins KO wouldn't surprise me at all. I think this fight finishes. And the good thing about this fight is 8.5 and 7.7K. Like, it doesn't take a lot for these guys to be on the optimal. So I like a ton of this fight. Of those 7, I mean, it's one of my. Well, I got to come up with a name for him. The special 7. It's one of the special 7. It's not one of the slam dunks. Like, if you don't agree with my 7, you can go a little bit lighter on this one. But I like Parker Porter.
There we go.
Of the 2 dumpster fires.
Kyle, when I watched the tape on these guys, I mean, it seemed to me that Porter throws bigger bombs. I didn't really. Dawkins actually looked to me more like a points striker type of guy. But yet I'm seeing his record. Dude finishes everyone. I don't know if maybe I should have watched more of the fights, but I mean, or he was just fighting such scrubs that he couldn't help but finish them. I have no idea.
I don't know, man. They both fucking suck. I think Dawkins is worse probably, and I think people are betting him up because they think he's probably like his brother. They just haven't watched any film, and I don't think he's really anything like that. He's more of like you said, a point striker. I haven't seen anything good from him on the ground, and I think that's where Porter can really shine here. I think he's a real heavyweight. He's gonna be the bigger, stronger guy, and I think that Porter can definitely get takedowns if he wants. I think that would be the really smart thing to do early as well. Take the power away from Dawkins, because really Dawkins is knockout or stuff takedowns, keep it standing, or you're going to lose, I think. I was just so unimpressed with Porter's power that I'm really not that interested in the fight as a whole, because I don't know that he gets a knockout. I do think he could get, takedown, dominant position, maybe get a referee stoppage, but even his like full mount punches are pretty soft punches. Like I just don't trust this guy to do anything really good. But it's pretty much Porter's the play for me. I like it a little less than Sean, but I do like it because they are mid range, and either one could get a knockout because they're heavyweight and they're both low level. I like targeting against low level guys, but Porter just looks like the real heavyweight, more well rounded guy, and those takedowns are something. I think that's going to get him the win.
There we go. I mean, my take on it, watching the tape, was like that Dockhouse looked more like a milk sack. You know what I'm saying? Like those punching bag types that we see every once in a while. They do fine, and they make it to the UFC, and they're just a fucking punching bag. You know who comes to mind? Remember that guy? I think his name was Colombo.
Christian Colombo.
Yes, that guy. Where and he had wins. Like you watch him on the regional scene, he had wins. And the second he's in the UFC, he just gets fucking knocked out at will. So that was the sense I got from Dockhouse. Whereas Porter, he just seemed like a big tough dude. Definitely a full size heavyweight, a much larger man in terms of just his girth, but didn't have he's just a big dude, a big real heavyweight. Tough guy. I'm going to go Porter as well here with my pick, but this is like get exposure to it. I don't think, though, Sniper, that I'm as all in on the fight as maybe you are. I think I want to get maybe 70-ish%. I kind of want to go with the inside the distance prop odds here, and they're giving it, minus 325. Right, it's about 75%. I think I'm going to go with that number and just allow for a few lineups just in case. But absolutely, both these guys have finished every fucking fight. But you never know when it's that time, when it's not that time. You know what I mean? So my pick as well is Parker Porter. But I'll have exposure to both in tournaments. Not even exposure, but 40-30, that kind of thing. Maybe 45-25, something in that range. Maybe 45. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. All right, next up, we have what I consider to be, outside of the main event, the most all-in fight on this card. TJ Brown taking on Danny Chavez. Brown's coming in at minus 150. The comeback on Chavez is plus 130. Okay? Not the highest inside the distance prop, because it's minus 155 to go to decision, which conflicts with what I just said, that I think it's an all-in fight. But I'll tell you why I think that in a moment. Actually, should I tell you? Because fucking TJ Brown never goes to decision, so I don't get those odds at all. As a matter of fact, I like the idea of betting the inside the distance prop on this one. I'm not a big prop better guy, but fucking A, I think you should, that is borderline easy money. Guy never go. Wait, I'm trying to look for this fight. Look for his Tapology here so I can show what I'm talking about. But Brown is not a guy that's going to decision very often. Finish, got finished, got finished, finish, split decision loss. There's one. Finish. I mean, it's crazy. Look,
and he grabbles a lot. And he grabbles his ass off.
Well, beyond that's where we get to the DraftKings scoring component. Beyond that, and we have a special guest here in a minute. I'm excited to introduce. But beyond that, my man never goes to decision. And if he does, all he does is grapple like a lunatic. This is like Tim Elliott on methamphetamine. Like, if it could get more intense than Tim Elliott, it is. But wait, I'm going to introduce.
This is going to be bad, guys. I don't know what this is, but avert your eyes.
We've got a special guest, I believe, here. Hold on. My man, Dan Levy from Best Fight Picks is in the studio. What's up, man?
It's a good surprise.
What's that, dude?
How's it going, gentlemen? I appreciate you all calling me on short notice. Happy to be here.
Well, we got a pay-per-view. We gotta break out the stars for a pay-per-view event, my man. Very nice.
I thought Geek was going to break out his stupid accent.
No accent. No, I'm not embarrassed myself in front of Dan, man. I gotta keep that, in the back pocket. So, Dan, we're just talking about one of the fights on the card here. TJ Brown taking on Danny Chavez. And I'd love to hear your take on this one, because Brown, he looked fantastic in his debut in the UFC until he got done what Griffin do, which is a sneaky little submission after getting his ass kicked for a round and a half. So is Chavez that type of guy that could pull that off as well?
It's tough to say, man, because there's not really too much footage on the guy. So it's one of those things where you got to take an educated guess. I mean, he trains with good people. He's out there with Ricardo Lamas and Miguel Baeza down at MMA Masters. So comes from a good gym. But I've only seen minimal amount of footage on him. So it's tough to draw conclusions. But what I do know about TJ Brown is that if he's not getting finished, he's usually winning. So as long as he doesn't get finished, he should win this fight, unless, Chavez is a serious beast we don't know about.
And we love that on DraftKings. What TJ Brown, for every second that he's alive and fighting, he's putting up points at a very rapid Merab Dvalishvili level pace. So we like that a lot for DraftKings purposes, for sure. Let's throw it over to Marley. Big Marley, what do you say on this one, man? You got a strong take on this fight, or kind of same boat here? Not so sure about Chavez.
Yeah, good to see you, Dan. We had to get you for the best fight, or the second best DraftKings fight of the card for sure, because that's what I think this is. With Brown, like you said, it's minus like 150 to go to a decision, but it's still all in for you, because if it goes to a decision, I think it's probably Brown winning, and I think any Brown win scores high. So that's what I like about Brown here. I definitely do like Brown. He's probably going to be like close to a core play for me. It's just that durability issue is a real thing. I'm worried about it, whether it be a knockout or even a submission. I just don't know this Chavez's ground game enough. But he's got some power on the feet. He's got some nice kicks that could definitely knock Brown out. And we just saw Brown put to sleep from a guillotine from like half guard. So it wouldn't shock me to see another submission loss here as well. But I just like what Brown brings to the table, especially from a DraftKings angle. He landed 7 takedowns, had 4 advances in just 2 rounds in his last fight. I mean, if he got the win and that went on for another round, he was going to score like 130, 140 points. So I just love that style from Brown. I'm going to be very heavy on him here. But if he loses, I think it's going to be because he gets finished, and that's going to score well also. So I like Chavez. I mean, a decent amount. I probably want like field weight of Chavez, if not more. But this is basically an all-in fight for me. 85% or more of my lineups probably have this fight. And I would say that Brown's going to be close to the 50% range for me. So let's go, Brown. I hope he doesn't get put to sleep here.
Man, you got to see what Brown can do for you. But I agree. Sniper, any different take here, or pretty much same deal?
Pretty much the same. I just wanted to mention that guillotine that got put to sleep on was from fucking side control, which I remember it just because I remember tweeting I'd never seen anything like that before. Like, that's a position where you can grab a Von Flue choke. It was weird.
All the time.
That was weird. But Brown just keeps going and going. They'll let you go up the grappling. I don't want to keep rehashing. Personally, I'm all in too. And just by default, because of how much this fight looks like DraftKings gold, like Chavez is probably my, not including Cormier, who we'll talk about later, probably my second highest exposure in terms of underdog plays, just because the fight is that good overall.
Got to have a lot of this fight, and this Chavez guy's been knocking guys out. One or two of which have not been terrible. So, I mean, he's been knocking guys out on the regional, and if he does that here, he's going to be in the perfect lineup. If not, TJ Brown's going to probably win and be in the perfect lineup. So either way, got to make that money with one of these two guys. All right, let's move on. A little less exciting fight here. Vera Jandarova, Felice Herrig. Vera, wrestler, minus 320 favorite. Herrig, haven't seen her in a while. A plus 260 underdog. What happened to Herrig, man? She hadn't been around. Fight goes to decision minus 205. So we'll keep this one brief. Dan, I'm going to go to you. You're a special guest here, man. You've got a wrestler against the all-purpose kind of fighter. What do you say on this one?
You know, I'll be honest with you, man. I feel like my take is either going to be really right or really wrong, you know, because a lot of people are saying this line is too wide. And if this turns out to be one of those close split decision type fights, then that statement will be accurate. However, I feel like 2 years ago, back when Felice was still fighting, we were already saying that she's towards the end of her run. And now she's coming off an ACL surgery, a 2-year layoff. Are we expecting her to look better than she did 2 years ago when we already had those concerns? And I feel like Jandarova is like entering her prime now. She's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. She's a specialist. I think it honestly might be a situation where it's one takedown and the fight's over shortly after. So Draftkings, I know you got to pay up a little bit, but if she goes out there and actually does that, you're going to get some good points with that. At the betting window, I know the line seems wide. And again, if I'm wrong and this is another close split decision type fight, then I guess disregard what I'm saying. But I have a feeling this might be a submission win for Jandarova. So I'm siding with her here.
I love it. I'm on board with what you're saying. I like Jandarova, I think, a little bit more than as a DraftKings play as well here, just because I love it when fighters are relentless with the takedowns and get advanced positions. When they start to advance positions, that tells me, all right, this is not just a takedown for the takedown. This is a real aggressive grappler, and that scores points on DraftKings. What do you say, Sniper? You like this fight for DraftKings purposes? I mean, I can't imagine too many people want to play Felice here.
I want to play Felice a little bit more. I don't like this fight overall. I'm part of the crew Daniel was mentioning. I think this line is too wide. I do agree, though, that if Jandarova gets an early takedown, I'm going to be in some trouble here. Just in terms of what Jandarova could score. So I'm not fading Vera. The path is there. Felice Herrig is she is physically strong. And I don't think Vera's going to be able to get a clean takedown right away. We've seen Felice Herrig defend takedowns very well. She's 76% takedown defense in the UFC. Courtney Casey couldn't take her down. We've seen tons of people try and take her down. Is Jandarova the best grappler she's faced? Probably. Is it going to be a quick takedown to finish? I think it's going to be more of some ring rust. I do agree with what Daniel said in that, you know, she was on the decline. And I think we're going to get there in this fight. But at 9,000, you need that finish to be in the first round. And I think Herrig's going to have enough resistance early to keep the fight close. We'll get into the second round, and at that point, then there's no way Vera's outscoring Sean O'Malley, Herbert Burns, TJ Brown, Merab Dvalishvili. Like, then it becomes a real hard route to the optimal lineup.
She needs the sub. She needs to get
in the first
a takedown and a submission. But the odds makers say. Let's look at what the odds makers say. It's not going to be high, but Jandarova by submission, which I like as a bet, is plus 250. 30% chance here. So that's about
what is it in the first round, though? I don't care if it's second round. I don't think it's enough. I don't care what.
Can I say one thing? Let me say one thing real quick. So everything you said is true, and if she doesn't get the sub, you're 100% right. It's not going to cover. But only thing I got to dispute. So I know it says officially that Felice Herrig's takedown defense is 76, and the reason why that's inaccurate is because if you look at the stats between her with her last fight against Michelle Waterson, it says that Michelle Waterson landed 0 takedowns. And I know you guys remember damn well when Michelle Waterson went out there and judo throwed Felice Herrig on her head. That's a takedown in my book. So if they're not counting that, that means that the takedown defense stat is inaccurate.
There's also
a little off, so it's like 72.
Well, Herrig has also been around forever. So like if you take the era that Herrig started, Herrig is from the Paige Van Zandt was the GOAT era. Okay, so that's when she's from. That's when she's from. Right?
She was never the GOAT.
She was the fucking GOAT. Stop.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yes, she was.
Paige Van Zandt was the GOAT.
Everybody loved Paige Van Zandt.
Are you just watching Naked with Vaseline? How do you watch UFC fights?
She was favored against Rose. Stop. Or against Rose Namajunas. Okay? All right, let's call it when fucking Rousey was the GOAT, and she was the GOAT. But the point was the level of wrestling in the women's division throughout the career of Herrig was not very good. This girl is not like, this is next level women's MMA with a real wrestler, like this. Jandarova's next level compared to what in her wrestling compared to what she's seen before. She's Carla Esparza style. All right, Marley, let's throw it over to you. Do you like this fight from a DraftKings perspective?
I don't love it, no, but I don't think anyone's gonna love it at all. I like Herrig from a cash angle. I like that she's very cheap. The Vegas thinks she's going to get 3 rounds of work. I'm okay with just throwing that one away. I think she's live a little bit, but more so me remembering the chick from 2 years ago. Like, I think she is live. I don't know about this new chick who had confidence issues in the past. How's she going to feel coming off an ACL injury? How that's even going to hold up the first time it gets, touched. So I don't know. I'm liking her less and less, so it's more of a cash gameplay for me. I don't see any real ceiling for Felice. I think it would be more her stuff and takedowns, getting the better on the feet, and then maybe, a takedown or 2 of her own that could steal it on the scorecards. But I think it's a decision is really her only path, I think, here, whereas Jandarova could get a decision, which won't help us, or she could get a submission, which I like. And everyone's going to want Marab. They're going to want, Rozenstruik and all these other people who are projected to score well. So they're going to be a lot higher owned. But if, like what Dan said, if Jandarova does go out there and just kind of mop the floor with Felice at low ownership, because she won't be owned, so she'll be like 10% to 15% owned, she could absolutely be the path to $200,000. So going into this, I wanted to fade Jandarova so bad, but I can't do it. I think she could be the path in GPP. So I'm definitely going to have some. I'm not going to have too much of her, but at least in line with the field, because I think that that outcome is definitely a possibility. So more Jandarova GPP Herrig cash.
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate this. Like
Fanduel, she's a good play.
Yeah, I mean, this girl has Herrig. 3 takedowns, 5 advances in both of her fights. One of which was against Carla Esparza, who's a wrestler. The other one ended in the second round. I mean, we could get 5, 6 takedowns, 7, 8 advanced positions out of her. So I'm not feeling it, man. I like Jandarova. I like wrestlers. I like fighters who relentlessly grapple. I don't love that she doesn't throw many strikes, but I think that Felice Herrig was never very good. And now she's coming off an ACL tear. What the hell does that mean? She's going to have confidence on that foot, and she's old. Yeah, give me Jandarova all day here to get the win, but also to score decent on DraftKings. I could definitely see O'Malley either, quote, losing or not scoring enough in his fight, because he ain't knocking out Cheeto Vera that easily, to where Jandarova could outscore him, and he's going to be way more popular. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Herbie Burns taking on Daniel Pineda. Under 1.5 round prop, guys, -140. That is a very high under 1.5. That's a very high inside the distance prop. I like it. Sniper, I'm assuming this is one of the 7, but Herbie Burns comes in at -280 with the comeback on Pineda at +240. I'm going to start again with you. And you know what, Dan, and before I even start, I want to remind people, check out the Best Fight Picks podcast every single week. Dan's website. I watch that. That's the first breakdown pod I started watching when DraftKings brought UFC back, and I needed some help learning those fights. I remember Flying Brian back in the day. I'm old school. Like that. So make sure you guys
go way back.
I go all the way back at bestfightpicks.com, and you can get his picks and all that great stuff. So what do you say here about Daniel Pineda, who looked pretty good to me on the tape, taking on Herbie Burns, who's been crushing scrubs, and a lot of recency bias.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was one of the guys that was pissed off when Daniel Pineda got cut from the UFC because I always felt like he was a super exciting guy, win, lose, or draw. And it's good to see him back. He's got some good wins on the regional scene, and he's really been doing his thing. And it's amazing to see a guy with close to 40 pro fights, and he's never been the distance one time, so definitely a fan favorite. And with Herbert Burns, he's one of my favorite prospects in the featherweight division. He's got such an elite jiu-jitsu game that it actually gives him time to develop the other areas of his game because he can really bail himself out at any point with one back take or whatever the case may be. So as he moves up the ranks, I expect him to level up in all areas, kind of like his brother did. I mean, when his brother first came to the UFC, I don't know if you guys remember because the most recent performances have been amazing across the board. But when he first came into the UFC, there were a lot of questions about Gilbert Burns' striking defense. He was taking a lot of unnecessary punches and stuff like that, but he would always be able to bail himself out with his jiu-jitsu. And I feel like Herbert's been doing the same thing lately. The thing is, Herbert's an intelligent guy. You give this guy enough time to develop, and he's gonna start knocking people out soon too. Now the thing with Pineda, because I know he's a very popular underdog this week, is people are saying all you got to do is get past this first round jiu-jitsu storm, and then you're going to go out there and win a decision. So you're telling me you're trying to rely on a guy that's 0-5 lifetime when fights go to decision to win a decision? Doesn't seem likely to me. Now, however, he's a black belt too. The issue I have with his style in this specific matchup is that Pineda relies on his ability to scramble and to get out of bad positions, which is great. It makes for amazing fights to watch, and against other guys, it's gonna win him fights. The thing is, it only takes one bad spot against a guy like Herbert Burns for the fight to be over right then and there. And I honestly think that's what's going to happen here. I think he probably is going to finish Pineda in the first round. Now, my other question with Pineda is that I don't know if you guys noticed, but his last two fights were no contests. That means that, because he tested positive for elevated testosterone. And if you guys watch PFL, most of the guys in PFL, or a good majority of them, based on the eye test, were pretty damn juiced. So for him to test positive, that means he must have been injecting horse semen. You know what I mean? Like for him to be juiced to that extent. Now he's under the USADA testing pool. How's he going to perform here under this rule set? Is he juicing anyways? Does he have a good masking agent, or is he going to come out here kind of deflated? So I got too many questions, and I'm siding with the favorite here, man. I think Burns takes his back one time and chokes him out.
Now, one thing I did notice about Pineda over that massively long and storied career of his, he's never lost by submission. So there's a lot of, it's just interesting that he hasn't lost via sub. He's lost a lot of decisions. He never wins by decision, but he's lost a lot of decisions, but he hasn't lost by a sub. So maybe that jiu-jitsu storm doesn't get to him, and he could expose Herbie Burns, I think, potentially here as well. I mean, it's a possibility, but definitely feels like an all-in fight. Marley, what do you say on this one, man?
Wait, before Marley goes, hasn't he been sub 6 times?
No, I don't have anything here that says he's ever lost by submission.
Yeah, definitely lost 6 times. Go Sure Dog.
Oh wait, I'm looking at the you tell me Tapology is wrong?
Go to Wiki.
No, it's just you can't see like how many submission losses.
Unless
he hasn't had one since.
Was it this back in 2009?
Yeah, it's like 2010. 2010,
okay,
he barred Chad Kelly.
There's a bunch of fights here back in 08 and 09 where it doesn't say.
So he lost Chad Kelly by knee bar twice. He lost
one. Okay. So it just says loss here.
Johnny Bedford by triangle. Kyle
there
Myers
it was.
by rear naked.
And there's levels to black belt. Herbert Burns and Daniel Pineda in a grappling match is I bet 1,000 minus 1,000 on Herbie Burns there.
The Tapology lack of information threw me off here because it's just showing Chad Kelly. This one is a loss. So I always look for when I'm trying to figure out if a guy is going to lose by submission, I look, hey, has he lost by submission before? Like Sniper, your call a couple of weeks ago with Jojua, where her opponent had lost by armbar like multiple times. It was predictive. And so I'm always looking for that kind of thing. So, but that's back in 2010. I don't know if we can really go by that. He hasn't lost by submission in a very, very long time. So maybe he can handle that Herbie Burns storm. I don't know.
I mean, like Daniel said, if they start scrambling, like Pineda's in all kinds of trouble.
The scrambles will happen.
On the feet.
If you watch his fights, I mean, the Kennedy fight, the scrambles are going to happen.
That'll be bad for
Kyle, why don't you break this one down for us? What's your take on this one? Same as Dan, you like Herbie for the first round sub here? Just finish quick.
Pretty much, yeah. The UFC's not bringing in Daniel Pineda at 35 years old, coming off a PED suspension, to upset one of their biggest prospects. So I like to bet with the UFC, and I think that's exactly what he's being brought in here for. I mean, give the kid another chance, I guess, because he's never going to get another one at this point. But this is to get Gilbert Burns a submission highlight reel win, and I think that's what's going to happen. So I definitely like Burns here. I think he could be knocked out, though. So I'll have some Pineda as well, but I'll have a lot more Burns. This is going to be a fight that I'm heavy on, but more so where I'm like close to half in, like 50% on Burns and 15-20% Pineda, something like that. That's what I'm seeing in my head. But 8,900 is kind of hard to pass up on, so I like him in all formats. Go Burns.
Well, let me throw this out there before I go over to Sniper and to both of you guys. What if Pineda comes in and, he's a strong wrestler. He was just in there with Kennedy. Kennedy's a really almost exclusively a wrestler. What if Pineda comes in there and he's like, I'm going to keep this thing standing and keep it in striking range, which I don't know if that's his game or not. But is Herbie Burns a good enough wrestler that he could get this guy down if this guy doesn't want to be taken down?
Well, that's a good question, because if Herbert Burns tries to come out here and have a kickboxing match with Pineda, well, Pineda's got his best chance to win there. I mean, we've seen Pineda knock people out before, no questions asked. But I will say this about Herbert Burns. I know that officially, his background isn't, in wrestling, it isn't jiu-jitsu, but we've seen in some of these last few fights that he's been adding new takedowns to his game. So it's not going to surprise me at all if he comes out here and does successfully take down Pineda. But back to that Kennedy fight, because the reason why I was kind of sketched out by the Pineda play was because Kennedy took his back, and Kennedy is a wrestler. He's not known for his jiu-jitsu. So I'm just thinking, what's going to happen if Herbert Burns does that?
Yeah, I would also, like I said, yeah, totally. But the flip side is Kennedy's a wrestler, Burns isn't. So what if Burns can't take him down? That's the one path, I think, where Pineda turns this thing around, because I'm not convinced that Burns is actually a good striker at all. The Dunham fight, the Landwehr fight, I think Landwehr was just excited to be in the UFC. I really do. I think he just got a little too excited, and, those jitters got to him.
Well, I think Anita the chin got to him, but yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. He's mostly known for his submissions more than his knockouts. But again, just back to the Burns brothers, just give them time to develop, and I think he's gonna round out his skill set. But yeah, obviously it'd be advantageous to try to get this to the mat ASAP. Yeah,
I would think so. Snipe, you got a different take on this one? What's your thoughts?
No, I'm pretty much with Marley and Daniel, and I just want to remind you, I feel like you're trying to talk yourself into playing more Pineda. He's a 35-year-old, second time in the UFC, coming off a PED suspension against one of the best prospects in the featherweight division. Like, just play your 20% and move on. I don't think it's a place to make a stand here.
I am trying to, it's because when I saw the tape against Kennedy, my first thought was, oh, this guy can counter wrestle, and that could negate what Burns is good at. Burns is, but
he had his back taken in that fight. That's what you can remember.
Yeah,
he ends up in one of the spot. Yeah, against Jeremy Kennedy, Herbie Burns will put him to sleep. He can't make that mistake. His best shot is to keep it on the feet. The path you laid out is there. Keep it on the feet. Use your wrestling. Win a striking match. That is his path to victory. I don't think it's his style. I got one for you later. It's not super cheap, but I got one for you later.
All right, there we go. All right, let's move on to the next fight. Actually, this is one where I like an underdog, so we've got one. I'm not sure about the scoring, but Livnia Souza taking on Ashley Yoder.
Yep.
Souza's coming in, slight favorite, -160. Comeback on Yoder, +140. Fight goes to decision, -300. We're going to get 3 rounds of action, possibly. And once again, Dan, I'll start with you. What's your take on this fight? You got a wrestler versus BJJ practitioner, it seems to be.
Yeah, no real strong take. I would just say that, Ashley's probably the bigger lady here. She's got more size, but I'd say that Lavinia is the tougher one. And if this does hit, if this fight gets tough and it's 1-1 going into the third round and it all comes down to that last takedown or that last top position, I think Lavinia is the tougher lady here. So I edge her for that reason. But, we have seen her taken down before, and that's Ashley's game. So I'm not going to be surprised at all if Ashley comes out here and gets a couple takedowns of her own. It's just, again, you put Ashley in one bad spot, you hit her with one clean punch, and I don't like how she reacts. And I've seen Lavinia actually knock girls out before in Invicta, so I just think she's got a little bit more of a mean streak to her, so I'll edge her for that reason.
There we go. Sniper, I'll go to you next here on this one. Yoder, Souza.
Yeah, I have a strong take. This fight blows dicks. I don't like. There's so many good fights on this card for me. It's not one I'm looking forward to watch. I lean Yoder very slightly, but Daniel's point's well taken. Like I think I favor her pretty much everywhere except in kind of intangibles and just aggression and toughness. Like that's where I probably lean towards Lavinia, and Lavinia can steal a decision that way. 3 rounds of action though. I don't see a ton of scoring DraftKings wise. I'm going to play a little bit of Yoder because I'm picking her to win straight up in a really close fight, and she's 7,600 versus 8,600 of Souza. That's really all there is to it. I'm just not interested in this fight. I don't see many paths to a high scoring outcome. What is a little worrying is the highest path I can see in my head is Yoder getting a takedown and Souza subbing her. That's totally a possible outcome. Even then, that's 95-ish points. Really good at 8,600. Not a lock for the nuts on this card. So I'll take my chances. And I think, look, neither one has got a great resume. Give me Yoder, who is, I think just I like the wrestler. I always lean towards the wrestler in the spot with some control time. So that's how I'm edging this fight.
There we go. How about you, Big Marley? Souza, 25% takedown defense. Sometimes she just flops to her back. Likes to be on her back. 5'7".
I mean,
out though 5'7" versus 5'3". Very big size difference here.
Yeah, and I would think that helps Souza probably get lower. She can get lower, get her hands connected, get the takedowns easier. I don't think it's easier for Yoder to do that. And she's not a great wrestler, but I do like Yoder's grappling a lot. Yoder is someone I've been high on pretty much every fight. And I'm definitely not going to X her out of the player pool here. I just don't think this is a great matchup for her because Souza, I do think, is the one that's going to be pushing forward. She's going to be more aggressive, land in the harder shots. I think more likely to get takedowns. But I think we'll probably see a lot of grappling exchanges, which I like on either side. Yoder, I think, can use her length and maybe outstrike Souza that way. If it stays on the feet, she can get some takedowns of her own, have grappling success. Either one of them could get a submission. So I don't hate the fight, but I definitely don't like it. So I'm probably going to be, man, I don't even know, really. So I'm just going to hand build, I think, this week. And I'm going to start with thinking I'm going to make 20. We'll just see how it goes. But if I make 20, these aren't going to be like 2 that I'm Xing out of my player pool thoughts, but it would be like the last in my lineup type deal. And if I go through at the end of my 20 and neither one of these made a lineup, then I'm fine with that. I'm not going to go back and force either one of these in there. But ideally, I would want probably 1 each or something like that out of the 20 lineups. And if I get up to 50, then I'll start getting more and more. But I think it would be like 10 to 15% range of both of them. And if you want to fade it, then I probably get away with that. But they are that mid range, so it's kind of hard, man. If one of them puts up 90, that could be enough to be on the nuts. And with all the possible grappling exchanges we could see, 90 wouldn't surprise me even in a decision.
Yeah, I'm not in love with the fight from a scoring perspective, but I have a little bit different take. Man, Ashley Yoder's giant compared to Souza, and compared to Souza's last opponent. I mean, you saw Souza in there kind of like hanging in there against Van Buren and her takedown attempts or whatever. Van Buren's like tiny, 5 foot, 5'1". Yoder 5'7" against 5'3". That's a giant difference in women's MMA. There's a reach advantage here. I like Yoder here. I like Yoder to get the takedowns. I like her to be the better wrestler of the two, the more dominating wrestler. So I think Yoder should actually be able to execute what she's trying to do, which is take her opponent down and lay on top of her. I don't know that that's going to score enough. And you're absolutely right, Sniper. Like, Souza could lock up a sub from that situation, but I guess it could happen. I don't want to pay up for Souza all that much at all, because if she doesn't lock up that sub real quick, it's going to be very hard for her in that salary range to get where she needs to go, to pass everybody else who's so much more exciting in the similar salary range. 106 points against Chambers. So even against Sarah Froda, and that was a dominating win. Froda, nothing, right? She still only put up 68 DraftKings points. So it's just not a promising scoring situation for Souza. I like Yoder here to get the win, and I'm only interested in Yoder. I'll probably full fade Souza. I won't have exposure to her on DraftKings this week. It's just not a play I'm interested in. All right, let's go to this next fight. Old guys. Vince Pichelle from hell, -135, taking on Jim Miller. We love Jim Miller. +115. Fight goes to decision, -120. So we got about pick'em odds on the fight, pick'em odds, even odds on if it goes to decision or not. Dan, start with you. Do you have a strong take on this one? I mean, Miller likes to get a first round sub or lose. That's kind of what he's been doing lately.
Yeah, for the most part, that's truly been the case, right? And I was kind of thinking, man, does Vince Pichelle really push that pace to kind of gas him out? And could this be the first fight in a while where Jim Miller actually goes out there and wins a decision? I'm curious, but at the same time, it's also, against Scotty Holtzman, for example, he wins the first round, they get to the second round, and as soon as Scotty got on top, Jimmy wasn't getting back up, and it canceled out anything that happened standing. So that makes me wonder, maybe Jimmy's lighting him up with his kicks. You guys know Jimmy's got some great kicks. Then Vince gets on top. Is Jimmy going to get back up? So this is a tough one that I've been going back and forth on. I know I took Miller on half the battle, so I'll stick by my pick and take him here. But man, I'm not confident at all. I could go either way for sure.
That does not clear up a whole lot. How about you, Kyle? What do you got for us on this one, man?
I'm not going to be any help here, guys. This one, it's like the first time I ever kept a fight to be determined until today. I think it's a really close one. And I've been picking against Miller every freaking time, and he's been burning me. So, I mean, DraftKings, I might just have to keep it rolling. Like, I'm pot committed at this point. Just might go with that Miller fade, but I don't know if I could do that. So we'll have to see. But I do think early Miller will be the better boxer, more likely to get a finish. If he can get a takedown, he can get a sub. So I definitely like that. But I just think the longer this fight goes, the more it'll play into Pichelle's hands. I think he can get a knockout in any round, maybe. And I just think he's the better wrestler of the two. I don't know that he wants to use that against a guy like Miller, especially not early while he's fresh. Maybe, rounds 2, rounds 3 to lock up those rounds, something of those sorts. So I am leaning with Pichelle as my pick for those reasons, basically, but not confident at all. And I picked Miller, Monday and Tuesday, and I changed my pick to be determined Wednesday. Today I switched it over to Pichelle. So zero confidence at all. I like that they're mid-range. I think they're both playable. But I like that Pichelle's cheaper, and he's the betting favorite. So that makes him my preferred play on DraftKings too, and I definitely like that. I like that for cash. It's going to make him more popular in GPP, so I don't love him there, but definitely going to give me some Pichelle exposure, whereas Miller will be a guy that I try to keep out of my lineups as long as I can, but he'll end up making some.
It's funny. I always pick Miller. I had Miller against Holtzman too. I had him every fight. He's come through a lot. So it's interesting how that went the opposite. I liked him against I picked him against Holtzman also, and he looked good for a minute, and then he tired out. So Sniper, do you think Pichelle has what it takes to sort of survive the early rounds with Miller and then come back. And I feel like Pichelle's just a really different opponent than what we've seen Miller have recently. Like, what about Holtzman? Would Holtzman beat Pichelle? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that a fair even comparison?
No, okay. I mean, it's just a totally different fight. Jim Miller's come through for us. I mean, you got the sub over Roosevelt Roberts last time out, which paid off pretty nicely. It's funny. Miller, I agree with everything Marley said. If Miller early, the kicks range, I think he'll be good. And if Pichelle tries to shoot a takedown early, I mean, Miller and his submission game, we've seen it before. He's a good grappler. I don't think Pichelle will be able to dominate him on top in the first round. So the first round, I'm kind of chalking up to Jim Miller. In my head, I'm starting this fight off 1-0 Jim Miller. Now, where do we go rounds 2 and 3? Outside of a Pichelle knockout, by the way. I should mention Pichelle is the one more likely to land a knockout, has a big right hand. We've seen him crumple people in the past. I don't think he'll put out Jim Miller, but Pichelle is more likely to land the first round knockout. I'm leaning towards Miller. I seem to always pick him as well. I think he can do enough in terms of range, enough counter grappling to stay up, but we've seen Holtzman dominate Miller on top. If he gets tired, Pichelle could do the exact same thing. From a DraftKings perspective, that doesn't worry me so much because I don't think that score is great. I think Miller has more upside here, assuming Pichelle doesn't land that knockout. I want to mention that just because if it happens, I don't want people to say there was no way it was going to happen. You didn't mention it. I'm not playing for it. I'm pretty much just playing Pichelle because of the odds value, like Marley mentioned. I'll have a little bit more Jim Miller because I think people are going to avoid him in that first round submission or the first round grappling. I think he's got a sneaky path to a decent score here at 8,300. So I'm under on this fight. This is not one of the 7 primary ones I'm targeting, but I'm taking Jim Miller small lean here.
Yeah, I do like this fight. I like the salary levels of both guys, and I'm picking Miller as well, although I think you got to have exposure to both sides of it. Pichelle is one of these guys that's just come through time and time again for us as well, even as a big underdog, just like Miller has. So, it's kind of unfortunate because both these guys, whenever they're on a card, I'm licking my chops because they're usually underdogs and they're usually coming through as underdogs. Now they're going up against each other. I like both guys. I'm picking Jim Miller here just because I think Pichelle's grappling might get negated by Miller's submission capability. Not sure, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Neither guy is very difficult to take down, though. So I do think we're going to see a lot of grappling here, and we'll see how it goes. All right, let's go. Up next, my man, Merab Dvalishvili. Georgian-born, Long Island strong sniper.
My boy.
Long Island strong. Minus 245. You're getting Merab. First of all, I bet Merab at minus 180 2 days ago. Yeah, bitch. Even if it doesn't work, I love beating the final line. So that's all good. But Merab taking on John Dodson, different kind of fight. I think the small ring will come into play here. Dan, what's your take on Merab as a fighter, man? I love this guy. And can he, this is a big step up going up against John Dodson, but I think what do you think? You think he's ready?
Yeah, I think he's ready, man. I think the guy is ready for 5-round fights as well. He's pretty amazing to watch. And obviously, look, John Dodson, he's a fast fighter, but he doesn't really fight at a fast pace, if that makes sense. It's not like he's active for every minute of the fight. He kind of fights in bursts. And obviously, look, Merab's got to look out for that blitz. But the good news in terms of, because your big fear would be Merab getting knocked out, right? It's not. I don't think your big fear is John Dodson taking Merab down, right? So your big fear would be John Dodson knocking him out. And the reason why I kind of see that being, a kind of low percentage outcome is like Merab's got such great conditioning that I feel like even if he was to get knocked down, I feel like he can recover. And like one thing about, the Wood fight, and I picked Wood, I bet Wood, but I knew the one risk going into that fight is like, hey, Nathaniel's kind of chinny, so there's a chance he could get knocked out, but I'm willing to take that risk anyways. Whereas here, I'm not saying that Merab's chinny or anything like that. I feel like Merab's going to recover perfectly fine if he gets dropped. And look, yeah, I know the takedown defense says 80% for Dodson. And honestly, I think after this fight, it'll still be pretty high because, like, if you think about it, he's probably going to stuff the first takedown. He's probably going to stuff the second takedown. He's probably even going to stuff the third takedown. The thing is, gentlemen, he's not going to stuff the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. So, and I do think he might pop up once or twice, but like, Merab's, you know, when you say the nickname the Machine, it's not just because he gets all those takedowns. It's also because, like, his mindset doesn't get deterred no matter what you throw his way. So let's say he takes Dodson down and then Dodson pops back up. You know, if it's Weidman last week when Akhmedov gets back up, you see Weidman like, you know, huffing and puffing and rethinking life. Whereas Merab, he'll let you get back up just so he can take you down again. Like, he lives for this shit. So I think he's going to come out here and break Dodson. And, yeah, I think he's winning this fight by decision most likely.
I love it. Sniper, I'm pretty sure that Dvalishvili has a record here. 13 and 12 takedowns over the last 2 fights. Can he do it again here? I mean, you know, is Dodson going to be able to dart out of the way? He's quick. He runs. That's what he does.
Smaller cage, thankfully. And just Merab is going to be... Merab's not going to slow down. That's the thing. Dodson is quick. Merab's just going to keep chasing him until he fucking catches him. And I don't know if he'll get 12, 13 takedowns, but it's going to be a lot. And I'm the biggest John Dodson fan there. I was crazy enough to pick him against Nathaniel Wood, and I thought I was fucked until I wasn't. I am always picking John Dodson just because he has underrated power for a 135 or for whatever it is, and he's quick. His style is not fun. People don't like to watch him fight, and I get it because it's boring. But typically, you know, he's won a lot of fights with that style. This is not a good style matchup because, okay, yeah, you sidestepped, you got out of the way. Merab's not stopping. He's coming. And Dodson's probably going to get off a couple decent right hands. I think Dvalishvili will eat them and take him down, control and win rounds. Like, there's no reason not to play him on DraftKings. Core play, I think. I mean, honestly, for me, your own money, but he's going to be chalky. I want to get over the field. I minimum 70% Merab Dvalishvili at this price. It's just stupid. There's no way. If it beats me, it beats me. But he seems like at least 70% likely to end up on the optimal lineup.
Kyle?
Yeah, I love Merab just as much as the next guy. He's going to be the highest owned guy on the slate, probably. But I'll still be overweight. Just always, no matter what. I always want to be on Merab on DraftKings. He is DraftKings Gold. He's 4-2 in the UFC, and he averages 107 DraftKings points with 2 losses.
And
that's insane.
If we're being honest, he has no losses.
Yeah, I mean,
if we're being honest,
yeah, you can definitely make that argument too. And I think, like, I've seen a lot of people say this is a bad matchup for Merab. I don't know that it's a bad matchup, and I don't think it's a good matchup at all for Dodson. I think it's absolutely KO or bust for Dodson. I don't see any other path for him winning this fight. He's not going to out-volume Merab on the feet. Even if this stays standing for 15 minutes, Merab's going to land, 3 to every 1 minimum that Dodson's going to land. So even if Dodson lands, 1 to 5 hard punches throughout the whole fight, all that volume from Merab is still going to win on the scorecards. But what we love about him is the wrestling, just the chain wrestling, the relentless wrestling, and just the relentless pace. This guy's never just sitting there doing nothing. He's always doing something, whether that's throwing a jab, throwing a kick, going for a takedown. He is just the perfect style. I love it, everything about it. And I think he's going to cruise here. I think one of the best prop bets on the whole card is Merab by decision. I love that play quite a bit. So that's my outtake on this fight. He's just going to cruise for a 3-round decision, probably get another 3 to 4 takedowns per round. Maybe Dodson stuffs 3 or 4 per round as well. He could be a decent Fanduel play for that reason or something. But once Merab gets a hold of him, he's getting put in the air and down to the mat, and he's probably going to get right back up, which is going to lead to him going right back down, just more and more points. So give me all the Merab I can afford. And at 8,700, I think I'm gonna be able to afford a lot.
You know, there's never been a Merab, a fight where Merab was in it that I wasn't all in on DraftKings for this guy, outside of maybe the first one or two. Even that, I made the Simone fight because you wanted some Simone exposure. Beyond that fight, I've been all in on him every time. I'm not changing the pattern. The guy always delivers. He's 8,700. It's a gift. He's not the most expensive fighter on the card. That's crazy. To me, his win odds are just about the best on the card, and his potential scoring is right up there. Although it is wild to say that there are two other fights that could score just as much on this card, but you know, for the most part, I'm all in on Merab. If this was a larger ring, I'd have a little more concern, but the smaller one is going to limit how much Dodson can use his quickness to run away. And I just think Merab is going to get his hands. He's going to grab him. He's going to get a hold of him. And when he does, he's not going to let him go. So, you know, you don't fade Merab. You just don't. You go all in. You go over the field and you go all in. And then you on DraftKings, you got 6 variables to deal with. If we can eliminate one variable and just have to deal with 5, that increases our chances of winning the Monies. And that's what we're trying to do. All right. All in on Merab. Next up. Tough fight. Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Junior dos Santos. Very close odds, minus 130 to plus 110 here, favoring Rozenstruik. Interesting inside the distance prop, minus 280. So the odds makers are looking for a finish here. Dan, do you have a preference with these two guys? You know, technical strikers, chin issues, maybe with JDS. I don't know. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the opposite side of everyone on this one. You know, I'm going with Jairzinho Rozenstruik here. I feel like Cigano is a popular dog this week, and I understand why, because, you know, the best version of Cigano, I think, probably beats Rozenstruik. The thing is, man, firstly, you don't just have to knock out Cigano to beat him these days. Like, you saw that fight against Curtis Blades, where Curtis Blades has never knocked anybody out standing before, ever. And when he fought Cigano, he didn't even knock him out either. Cigano took a punch and said no more. So we're at that point with Cigano. And it sucks because, you know, he's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. And, you know, if you want him to take down Rozenstruik, he hasn't gotten a takedown in the UFC since 2014. So I don't know, man. And then the calf kick game, which Cigano has, I feel like Rozenstruik's got really good kick returns. So I just feel like Rozenstruik's going to knock him out in the first round. So I'm definitely going to be having some exposure to him in DraftKings.
There we go. How about you, Kyle? Do you have a strong take on this fight? I mean, Dan's going with Rozenstruik, slight favorite here to get that finish, I assume. If he does, it's definitely or most likely going to, I mean, chances are it's going to be in the nuts. Rozenstruik, you know, it's not going to throw a ton of volume, but if he knocks you down, knocks you out. You know, perfect lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like Rozenstruik for DraftKings. I think a first round knockout's one of the most likely outcomes of the fight, and that's going to score 100 plus at 8,400. That's on the nuts. So, definitely want a lot more Rozenstruik. He's one of the better plays on the card for sure. But a lot of people are going to be high on him. He's going to be one of the higher owned guys on the card as well for that exact reason. And I'm not one to put all my money into knockouts. And I think if he doesn't get that knockout, he's probably going to lose this fight. I think he does have, I mean, maybe he has more tools in his toolbox on the feet. But I don't think he wins a striking decision over JDS. And I mean, if this fight hits the mat, it's JDS taking it there. And I think that we do see that, actually. I think we see some takedowns from JDS. I think that would be smart, especially early, take the power away from Rozenstruik. And then the longer this fight goes, I mean, the more it's in his favor. But everyone thought he was going to knock out Overeem in the first round. It took him 24 minutes and 59 seconds to actually get that done. If he goes past 15 minutes here, he's not going to be on the nuts, period. So I'm not going to like him as much as everybody else, but there's no way I would ever fade Rozenstruik because the durability issue is for sure a thing with JDS. I just think JDS is the better fighter. And knockouts are one of the most overrated aspects of picking fights. So I will let everyone else invest all their money into it, and I'll probably be, I would say at most in line with the field, but I'm guessing I'm going to be lower on Rozenstruik. And I don't have a lot of interest in JDS. Even if he gets a win, I think it's probably like a decision win where he lands one takedown in each round, doesn't land high volume, just makes it clear on the scorecards, but he puts up 50 to 60 DraftKings points, which does us really no good. So I don't have a lot of JDS interest, but he could get a knockout as well. So I'll have some JDS, but for me, it's like on the betting line, it's JDS or pass. On DraftKings, it's Rozenstruik or pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's telling here that the KO prop for Rozenstruik is -115, but Santos is +335. And that's where both of these guys have about the same win odds. So, you know, the odds makers, the handicappers are definitely seeing what you're seeing, which is Rozenstruik, his path is getting a knockout at some point. Whereas if he can't, it seems like JDS will point him up for a probably a low scoring type decision win. What do you say, Sniper?
Go ahead. One second before, because we were getting some line value here, usually that's like a thing where you're like, all right, it's possibly a cash game play. Absolutely not with JDS here. He could have 0 points. So GPP only with him. I don't really love Rozenstruik for cash, but I think he's fine in all formats. JDS, absolutely GPP only. Fade, maybe even the better idea.
There we go. Fade a -330 doesn't go to decision fight. It's pretty scary. What do you say, Sniper?
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I like this fight a bunch. Rozenstruik, the upside's there. We talked about the durability of Chicano. Look, and Marley hit on kind of my main point is knockouts. You can't rely on them now, unless you're Francis Ngannou. And Rozenstruik has crazy power. You know, it's there. He knocked out Arlovsky, Overeem. You know, he lost the first 24 minutes of that fight. Like, he caught Overeem, exploded his lip, and got a big win. Now, Overeem hasn't declined as much as Chicano, but there's a blueprint there to beat Rozenstruik on the feet. Dos Santos is a great boxer. It's just a matter of that decline. I wish it was, Chicano of 5-6 years ago. JDS also has the grappling that we touched on. I think he's got plenty of tools where if he wins, I think he can pay off. Was it 7.7 or 7.8? Under 8K. Like, it doesn't take a lot to get there. I think 60 is a little bit low, because I don't think Chicano is just going to lay on him on top. I think he'll get a little bit done in terms of ground and pound. Like, Chicano's the more well-rounded fighter. To me, it's just a matter of durability. I think the winner of this scores pretty well. I think, people are hopping on Rozenstruik. I do think he's going to be really popular. I think I'm planning 30 to 35% of him, which is either field weight or just maybe a touch under. I do think he's going to be really popular. I'm going to have more of that than JDS. I don't think the DraftKings community is going to play Junior Dos Santos. I think they think, see the line there, and I get it in terms of probabilities and what Vegas is saying for, first round finish. I just don't think he needs it to be on the optimal lineup at 7.8K. Like, he's also better.
The optimal. Wait a minute.
Wait.
How does he get to the optimal without a finish?
If they have 3 rounds, of striking, 7.8K isn't ridiculous unless two dogs go off. 80 points.
3 rounds of striking, there's no chance.
3 rounds
with these guys.
It depends on the output. It depends on the output. Heavyweights. It does depend on the output.
There's no way it's gonna be high output.
20
with that durability. Like, he's smart enough to stay on the outside and kind of.
Yeah, I think he's going to go for a takedown. Perfect. Honestly,
I do too. I think that's how it would have to be. Is like they count those as significant strikes, but you're playing with fire there. Trust and fight metric with that.
If he goes for the takedowns, it's another story. I'm not looking to be overexposed to this particular fight. I think I want to get about field weighting. I don't like fights where I kind of think one guy's better, but his chin is a little sketchier, because it's just really hard to know or even have a great feel for what's going to happen in those situations. So yeah, for me, I'm just going to get field weight on it. I agree. Listen, I like -110 inside the distance for Jairzinho, and I'm not going to ignore that. I'm not going to be stupid. For his salary level, if that happens, He's 100% a Nutslock. So that's about a 35-40% exposure situation, maybe 35-ish.
What's the minus 110?
What's that?
What's minus
Rozenstruik inside the distance.
Okay, but here's a clear bit that we've seen before. This is why I think we should have this conversation in maybe a different podcast when there's now 4 of us. The number's a little deceiving. I'm more interested in what is it round 1, round 2. Because if he does the same thing he did against Overeem, lose the first 10, 12 minutes, and then get a late knockout, that's not enough. So the inside the distance, you got to absolutely.
95. He got 95 against Overeem. You get the knockdown.
That was 5 rounds. That was 5 rounds.
There you go.
You got to start looking at these inside the distance. Like I want round 1, round 2, round 3 start to get sketchy with favorites.
That's fair. Well, that's fair. But you don't go 50% for that reason. But yeah, could be a disappointing fight. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's go to the co-main. Really exciting fight. Sean O'Malley taking on Chito Vera. Minus 265 favorite. Plus 225 for Vera on the comeback. Goes to decision prop minus 110. Now, Dan, just to hear you say Chito Vera's name is like, yes, baby. The originator. What do you say here, man? It's a pretty big line. Plus 225. Vera's come through as an underdog in the past. Never gets knocked out.
Up until this point, that's definitely been the case. For sure. Just got to give a disclaimer to your listeners that I'm very biased when it comes to Chito Vera. You know, this is a guy who I've just enjoyed watching him fight since the beginning. He's always been very exciting, always been a finisher. And he was actually one of the few guys who gave me the time of day on Half the Battle back when nobody gave a shit about me, back when he was first starting out in the UFC. So I'll always be biased towards Chito Vera, and I'll always root for him for his entire career. But it's been awesome to see the improvements he's been making in his game, no doubt about it. It's just that in this fight specifically, this is a tough matchup for Chito Vera because one thing Chito's known for, like you mentioned, he's never been knocked out, and we know he can take some hard ones too. You know, he's been in there with Lineker, went the distance, won the 3rd round there. Been in there with Song Yadong, won the 3rd round there as well. So, you know, those are 2 of the heaviest hitters in the division. So we know he can take a clean one. It's just that he definitely gets hit too much for my liking. You know what I mean? And especially against a guy like O'Malley, who's as accurate as he is and who's as precise as he is, as fast as he is. And honestly, it's not often you see 6-foot-tall bantamweights either. And he's put on a lot of size. I feel like O'Malley's the real deal, but there's definitely a lot of questions that need to be answered. You know, is this a situation where O'Malley actually becomes the first man to knock out Chito Vera, or could it be a situation where, you know, Chito can take O'Malley to that place that Derek Brunson took Edmund Shabazian to, you know, if he gets past that early storm? So there's definitely a lot of questions. You know, like I said, I'm biased in this fight. I'm rooting for Chito, but I definitely understand why O'Malley is favored, and honestly why the line is where it is right now.
There we go. A rare pick against Chito Vera from Dan here. Sniper, what do you say, man? O'Malley, not only does he need to win, how does he score enough? Now, we know O'Malley doesn't go for takedowns. It's not his game. How does he score enough to be in the perfect lineup if he doesn't get a finish here on a guy who hasn't been finished before?
I mean, just pure volume. And then, I mean, if Chito Vera drags it into a dogfight, he needs the first round knockout, though, is the best way to get to where we need him for DraftKings. And this is, by the way, this is the first time that Sean O'Malley is going to be tested. Hot prospect. The UFC has matched him up perfectly. Andre, Terry and Ware. Guy doesn't get a break, probably better than his record, but Terry and Ware. Andre Sukumta, who if can just stand up, wins that fight. I won't rehash it. Jose Quinones, not a bad fighter, journeyman guy, really low level UFC, in my opinion. And then the ghost of Eddie Wineland. Like, now we're talking though. Chito Vera is not a joke. He beats all of those guys as well.
I think we can agree he beat Song Yadong also comfortably. Or no?
Who are we talking about? Marlon Vera?
Yeah, that last fight, he won that fight. It was just that was like a Florida decision.
I was still back on O'Malley. So yeah, we got Vera who's tough. My biggest thing with Vera in this fight, and where I'm gonna have some O'Malley is that Cheeto is he's a slow starter. And if you start slow against Sean O'Malley, that's gonna be a problem. I know he's tough, but you don't want to keep putting your toughness out there and testing it, because eventually you're gonna get put out. I do think though that the most likely outcome here is that I think O'Malley understands that this is his biggest test to date. Cheeto, by the way, grappling, I would love to see O'Malley on his back. Like, I want to know what's going to happen. He's on podcast talking about, BJJ isn't fighting or whatever exactly he said, trashing BJJ. And then he trains. There's pictures out there. I think he's got a purple belt. But Cheeto, we've seen pull off slick submissions in the UFC, plenty of arm bars. Like, if Cheeto, I want to see Cheeto go for a takedown just because I want to see what O'Malley can do. I think more times than not, O'Malley wins this fight. I think he should be the favorite. I think it's maybe a touch wide just because of the hype around O'Malley, but I understand it. Vera has paths here, takedowns. If he can drag O'Malley into deep water, like Daniel mentioned. O'Malley's the pick. I'm probably going to be underweight because most expensive fighter on the card gets extra ownership, and the name Sugar Sean O'Malley is going to get some extra ownership. I think there are better places to go. Because Vera is so tough, it's one of those, you're more like, just in general, we see a lot of finishes early in cards versus late because lower level MMA just has a higher finish rate. It just does. And, we have a high, these are two good UFC fighters. I'm not banking on the first round finish, and I'll play a little bit of Vera because cheapest fighter on the card that nobody wants to play. And I think he's live. So O'Malley is the pick though. And the first round knockout, it's possible. So I think in the scope I wrote up, I think I'm like 25% O'Malley and 10% Cheeto Vera.
There we go. How about you, Big Marley? You also on the favorite here? You think Vera has a shot?
I really don't have too much more to add. These guys kind of killed it. I would say Cheeto has a shot if he can get it in the clinch, work his way to the ground. But I don't think he really has a shot on the feet. Man, I couldn't wait to fade this guy. Like pre-suspension. I got hit up Dan like Sukumta, he might be the guy, you give me any decent fighter back then, I was gonna take it because he's just a scrawny kid. Like any wrestler I feel like would have had success with him, but he went into that suspension a boy and he left a man. And now he's got a ground game with him. He's got power behind these shots. His striking is real. So I think I'm on the board, the hype train, man. I'm an all O'Malley fan now. I can't wait to see what this kid does, and I think this is the perfect test, honestly, to see how good he is. I mean, if he can't style on Vera, maybe I'm a little too hyped on him with the rest of the world. But if he can style on Vera, then this kid title potential for sure. So I can't wait to find out what the case is. But yeah, I even heard of him like back in the day, like when I was trying to fade him. My buddy, his dad grew up with O'Malley's dad, so like he knew his dad for a long time, and he was like, yeah, my buddy just had a friend get into that UFC stuff you watch. He just got signed and he had some fight where Snoop Dogg was calling his fights. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like he smoked weed with Snoop Dogg after that too. He's like, oh, that's crazy. His dad's a cop. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. You wouldn't think Sean O'Malley's dad is a cop, but apparently he is. So interesting little fact there. But yeah, I'm on the O'Malley train. I think I picked him by a first round knockout, but I also agree with Sean where I'm cool with being underweight because he's gonna be very owned because of his name. Highest salary on the card, and it's only 9,200. And I don't want to invest in that first round knockout too much. I mean, I think he can get there in a second or third round knockout with his volume, but not if Vera's having success, and that success would be getting it in the clinch and on the ground where O'Malley's not going to be scoring much. But I would also love to see Cheeto get a takedown to see what O'Malley has off of his back. So. Can't wait for this one. This is like it's this fight in the main event. I'm take my money. I'm in for these two.
I will pay for this main event all day. For this fight, I think Vera's live for a submission. I haven't seen where O'Malley has shown much in the wrestling department at all. I don't know, and his grappling defense department. Like I don't know if he's able to get out of submissions. I don't know. We haven't really seen him have to use it. He hasn't fought anybody that's tried to use that on him. So that's the last question mark. And I mean, Vera seems like he always wins by submission, or he wins a lot by submission. So he's live at some point to wrap up a guillotine, wrap up a rear naked choke, do something to submit this fight. For that reason, while I like O'Malley and he looks next level, he looked like he went into that suspension looking like Chase Hooper. He came out looking like, a whole different person. Like, I don't understand how he gets down to 135. I really don't. But as far as this fight goes, he's still not. We don't know about his submission defense. We don't know if he will be able to hang with a great grappler. Not that Vera is that, but he's a sneaky submission guy. I do think O'Malley's going to piece him up on the feet, though. So I like the fight. I don't love it for DraftKings purposes. I think O'Malley will absolutely need a finish along the way. I don't want to completely. I'm not going to fade it because O'Malley could get 2 knockdowns and a finish along the way and score 110 points. It's absolutely within the realm of possibility here. But there's also sort of a version of this fight that goes down where there's a little more grappling, a little more lulls in the action. So I don't want to be all in on this thing, but I like O'Malley, but I will have Vera exposure just in case he could pull off that crazy submission that he's done before. All right, main event time, guys. And it's a good one. Cormier, Miocic. At this point, it's a pick'em. We've seen this fight 2 times before. Third time, will the outcome be any different? Who knows? But Dan, I'll start with you, man. We've seen these 2 guys just recently fight for 4 rounds. We've seen essentially what was Cormier winning every one of those rounds until Stipe discovered the body punch. So in round 4 of the last version of this fight. So do you think anything changes here, or does this play out the same?
Yeah, man, I definitely think listen, every time they fight, it's going to be a different fight. The first fight, actually, Stipe was dominating him, and then he's the one that got caught in that first round with a beautifully placed right hand by DC off a clinch break. And then in the rematch, obviously the first round, DC dominated him for sure, but there's a lot of things that I noticed, man, that, for example, people are saying that now, DC is going to come out here and wrestle Stipe, and it's like, he tried doing that the last fight and he gassed out because he pushes such a hard pace and Stipe makes him work for everything, that I question what happens in, deep waters with a guy like Cormier, because every single time we've seen him in a 5-round fight that's been extended, I mean, let's be honest, he's gassed out. The John Jones fight, you remember John Jones' famous quote? He said, who embraced the grind, when the going got tough? It was John Jones. And then the Alexander Gustafsson fight, I remember that DC got dropped with knees in the later rounds. And then most recently, the Stipe fight, he got finished in the 4th round. So I feel like if Stipe can make him work for everything and extend it, that he can get him out of there late again. Now, both guys have a path, obviously, early. It's heavyweight. Either guy can win by knockout early. But, man, I don't know, like DC is talking retirement. So I feel like if it's in deep waters and the going gets tough, that why would he bite down this time if he didn't bite down a year ago? So I got Stipe, actually. I feel like he's one of the most counted out heavyweights on the entire roster. Like every single fight, it's easy to count him out. Against Ngannou, he was counted out, by myself included. Against DC, he was counted out the last time. Like, even against Junior Dos Santos, he was counted out. So against Werdum too. So yeah, I got Stipe here and still.
There we go. Big Marley, man. I still have painful memories of the last time these 2 guys fought. You think it's going to go the same way here with DC gassing kind of 3rd round-ish, 4th round, as we get to the money rounds, to the championship rounds?
I mean, I'm going to have to say no. I just think DC's too smart to make the same mistake twice. And I also think...
Mistake, by the way, what was the mistake?
just going full speed the entire time, landing 230 strikes in 4 rounds. Just slow it down a little bit, but at the same time, you can't slow it down too much because you have to be the one pushing forward. You can't let Stipe get off because I think Stipe is going to be the more dangerous striker here. So you have to just keep him on the back pedal, threaten the takedowns, maybe wrestle a little bit more, try to land one takedown around type deal because Miocic didn't have much off of his back. So I think that would be a really good idea if he can land them. But I don't know. I mean, he just has to have the cardio ready to go, knowing this is his last fight. And the retirement thing's always, if a guy's thinking retirement or talking retirement, then you start to think maybe we fade this guy. But I think this is a completely different scenario. Like, he's been talking about retiring at 40 for his whole career. And so now we just know it's been past his 40. He's 41 now. This is it. He just knows that this is going to be the last fight. No better time than to possibly get the belt wrapped around your waist. It just makes all the sense in the world. And I mean, as a fan, I want to see him go out that way. But I'm 2-0 on these guys fighting so far. I'm about to make it 3-0 with DC getting that win here. I do think he's gonna, win 3 or 4 rounds here. Super close fight, very similar to the last one, but I think he will land, more than one takedown in this fight. I think he'll be the one landing more strikes, and I think this one goes all 5 rounds, and I just see DC getting his hand raised. So give me DC to go out on top, and then we have a whole mess to deal with after that. Can't wait for the BFP matchmaking after that one happens. So that's what I hope happens. I mean, not even the biggest DC fan, really. Miocic follows me on Twitter, so I mean, like, personally, I'd be rooting for him if it wasn't DC going out on retirement. I just think he's done a lot of good things for the sport. It would be great to see him get this win, so go DC.
But 2 great guys, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
They're both awesome. DC will remain an incredible ambassador for the sport, for years and years to come. And Stipe is just a great guy, a firefighter, first responder. What's better than him, right? He's like a real life hero doing this shit too. So, Sniper, what do you say here, man? We've seen a lot of this fight play out. DC winning rounds, guessing out late in the last one. Does Stipe come in and go, hey, I got the body shot now, and DC definitely leaves himself open to that? He could come out right now in first round, start nailing those body blows.
He could. I think DC, like Marley said, is a smart enough guy to make the adjustments. I think he'll look for takedowns. I do think he'll look to wrestle again. I just don't think he's going to be so fucking active on top. He might do a little bit more control. He landed 71 strikes in the first round. Like, every time he got on top, the dude just didn't stop. And then in the second round, on the feet, 56 strikes. And it was Cormier, pushing the action. Just dial it back, make the adjustment. I think, I mean, DC has all the tools here. Just Stipe is very dangerous. Stipe pretty much, I mean, I think this fight goes very similar to the last one, the second one, with the exception a little less volume from DC. And the question is that going to keep him fresh enough, or will Stipe find another adjustment and land a shot to put him down? Because DC, we've seen him finished and dropped, against Gustafsson, against John Jones, obviously. Like, he can be hurt and got at. Struve. To me, everything that Stipe does really well, obviously UFC champion, most title defenses, DC just does a little better. It's a matter of deep waters and kind of the resiliency, which I think does go to Stipe. For me, though, I'm still going to take DC. I'll take the skill over will in this one. That being said, all in on DraftKings, every single one of your lineups needs to have one of these 2 guys. My opinion, I mean, you could be, if you want to take aggressive stand other places, we're here to talk DraftKings strategy. If you go 50-50, sure. That's a totally viable strategy. It's not how I like to play. Take a stand. I'm going 70% DC, 30% Stipe. stack it up in cash games. Don't make the mistake. Both these guys scored over 100 their last fight, so could be a great stack regardless of who wins. And if one guy blows the other one out, which is possible at heavyweights, let somebody else fuck up and make the mistake. Like just stack it in cash games. Play in every single one of your lineups. Make a strong stand in GPP. Is my advice. I'm taking DC, but I can't knock anybody for picking Stipe. Like, I agree with you guys. Take my money.
And your cash game starts with DC, Miocic, Merab. Figure it out from there.
100%. Yeah, it's the easiest cash stack we've seen since Joanna took on Weili Zhang. And I can make an argument to stacking this fight in some tournaments as well. So, we've seen the scoring potential of this matchup. We see how DC starts strong. Stipe has more stamina, kind of can hang for longer. So we've seen this thing play out, and that's the format for a high scoring fight for both sides, regardless of who wins. I think that can definitely happen. I ever so slightly, man, I go back and forth. So Sniper, I will not be 70-30. I'm way more on the 50-50 on this fight situation. I just don't know how to call it. No, I don't know how to call it. Like, I think, like I said, DC is great, but he's smaller. And I think the size disadvantage hurts him over the course of the long fight. I think it's one of those things where I think he's much more skilled. I think he's one of the most skilled fighters that the UFC has ever seen in the octagon. And if this man fought at 185, even at 205, he's in the conversation for one of the greatest fighters of all time. If he had actually fought a little bit smaller, I don't even think there would be any question. I think he would be the consensus best, at least to this point, like great GOAT fighter of all time, because he's always at a little disadvantage with his size situation. And, we see it with Kevin Gastelum, man. You have to be incredibly skilled to overcome a consistent size disadvantage. And he has. So it just speaks to his skill. But overall, Stipe is still a much larger man. I can't stand watching a fight where somebody's like clinching and his hands like are up the way that DC's are. But I still think with all of that, DC will be winning the fight until something happens and he gasses and he potentially loses it. So I'm still picking DC here, but I don't have a heavy enough lean to really even want to mess with it too much on DraftKings. I think you want to just be right close to down the middle, or maybe I'll go 5% more on my lean just to fucking commit something. You know what I mean? All right. Final segment. And Dan, I'll explain what we do here. This is the Killshot podcast. And so what we do with the final segment is we each give our kill shot, which is essentially a potentially lower owned or less likely fighter play on the card that could deliver the nuts win for us. A lower owned fighter, generally an underdog, or somebody that not a lot of people are going to be on, that we're going to kind of go a little bit against the field and say, hey, I like to take a little more exposure to this person. I think they can get us a win. So I'll let you think about that.
And in this case, even Jandarova, if you think she's going to be on that 200K lineup, I would take that favorite.
Is that a fair kill shot?
Yeah, low owned. I think that would be a good one. Actually.
Anybody low owned, we'll call it, that we don't think is going to be super popular. So I'll let the other guys go first. Let you think about it for a minute. So Marley, I'll start with you. Kill shot for this card.
Fucking hard one for sure. I'm gonna go with Tony Kelly. Followed him on Twitter like 10 years ago, whenever that MTV show was, and he followed me back, so I was rooting for him. I watched like all of his fights back then, along with Matt Schnell, and then he unfollowed me, so I don't really care if he loses or not.
Harsh.
But let's go kill shot Tony Kelly.
Maybe you were saying nice things about someone else. Why do you unfollow you?
It's true. It's a good question. I thought he got too big time for me. I don't know.
Tony Kelly, too big time. Okay. All right, Sniper. I liked Tony Kelly kill shot, man. If he does win, he is probably a kill shot. How about you, Sniper? The world famous Sniper kill shot, 2 miles accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, missed last week. This is a hard one because it's just rough. I'm dancing between a couple. Before I saw how popular he was going to be, I was loading up shit ton of TJ Brown, but he's going to be chalk, so I can't go there. So I'm probably going to go with my boy. And
Will he be chalk? You think TJ Brown's going to be chalk?
Marley ruling? Because if I can take TJ Brown as a kill shot, sign me up.
I love TJ.
Definitely
Brown.
no kill shot.
Yeah,
but I don't know about.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So then you know what? Give me Chicano. Give me Junior Dos Santos.
I dig it.
That's a reasonable kill shot. I don't think he'll be high owned. All right, Dan, what do you say, man? Give me an underdog or a low likelihood fighter that might help us win 100K or $1 million this week. How much is it? $1 million?
200K.
200K.
200K. Okay, there we go.
How high owned do you guys think Herbert Burns will be? Because everyone's on Pineda, so you think Herbert Burns will still be high owned?
Yeah, he'll be high on. Pineda would be a kill shot since he'll be low.
Got you.
I'm saving Pineda for me.
There's Jandarova who had a first round a road strike.
Yeah, yours is Jandarova.
Shots.
I dig it.
There we go.
I can see it too, man. Wouldn't shock me.
I like it. Jandarova. I like that as a kill shot as well. Will not be high owned and absolutely could get a first round submission finish at low ownership and outscore someone like O'Malley. I like that. I'm going to go with Pineda with my kill. I was actually going to take Tony Kelly, but you took it, Marley. That was my first thought. So I'm moving back to Pineda. You know, I get that Herbie Burns is probably going to submit him real quick, but you know, Burns needs to prove it to me. You beat Evan Dunham. That's not impressing me. Evan Dunham basically came and collected a paycheck. So I don't think he came to fight. I think they called him and he's like, okay. And he didn't even fucking train. So let's make Herbert Burns prove himself. Give me Pineda to shock the world and get a knockout finish here. There we go. All right. That will do it for the kill shot. DFS Army, MMA, UFC, 252 Miocic Cormier breakdown. Again, I want to thank Dan Levy, our special guest from bestfightpicks.com, for popping in. That was awesome. Go check him out, bestfightpicks.com. Just type on YouTube right here where you are. Type in Best Fight Picks. Watch him and Shaq break down all the fights each week. I always watch it. One of the really, really sharpest minds in MMA. So great to have you on. And go to his website, bestfightpicks.com, and there are picks packages and all kinds of awesome stuff available there. Check that out. And for BigMarley and Sniper and myself, of course, if you aren't on dfsarmy.com subscriber, get over there, check it out. Make sure to like and subscribe to the website, the video, the pod, the YouTube, all that good stuff. We will see you in DFS Army Slack talking about the fights through Saturday and through the card and during the card. We'll have a great time hanging out together. So let's do that. And, you know, I'll see you guys on the leaderboard, man. Good luck this weekend. Take care, guys.
Later, guys.
The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets, casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets you got.